A reading from the book of Lamentations. To what shall I compare you, or to what shall I liken you, O daughter of Jerusalem? To what shall I equal you, that I may comfort you, O virgin daughter of Zion? For great as the sea is your sorrow. St. Alphonsus, in speaking about the sorrows of Mary, describes Mary as the Queen of Martyrs because her martyrdom was longer and greater than that of all the martyrs. St. Bernard of Clairvaux tells us Mary was a martyr not by the sword of the executioner, but by the bitter sorrow she bore in her heart. And the author of Lamentations captures the depth of Mary's sorrow when he implies that he is unable to find anyone whose sorrow can compare with hers. To what shall I compare you? To what shall I equal you, that I may comfort you, O virgin daughter of Zion? For great as the sea is your sorrow. Although the life of Mary, like the life of Jesus, was laced with sorrows, the Church highlights 7 sorrows, or dolors, so that we can reflect and commemorate them. We begin with the presentation, where Simeon takes Jesus in his arms and tells Mary of the sorrows to come because of her child coming into the world. And your own soul a sword shall pierce, that the thoughts of many hearts may be revealed. In the second dolor, we see that the sword of Simeon has not waited long to pierce the soul of Mary, as she and Joseph flee to Egypt by night in order to protect the child from the hatred of King Herod. The third dolor is when Mary and Joseph lose Jesus in the temple. The fourth dolor recalls the dread hour when Mary meets her son on the road to Calvary. In the fifth dolor, Mary stands brokenhearted beneath the cross of Jesus. In the sixth dolor, we contemplate the mother of sorrows receiving this still tortured body of her son in her arms after his crucifixion. And finally, in the seventh dolor, we meditate on our Blessed Lady as she said farewell to Jesus the night of the first Good Friday. Where her treasure lay, there was Mary's heart, with Jesus in the tomb. Sorrow comes to all of us on our pilgrimage of life as a consequence of the misfortunes that happen to us, either from within or without. Bereavement, loss of fortune, calumny, malpractices designed against us, or causes for exterior affliction. Sickness, humiliation, temptation, and remorse for past sins give rise to us within. There are many incorrect ideas about suffering. There are those who falsely think that the Christian way of life glorifies suffering for its own sake. Actually, the Christian ideal is to use suffering as a means of virtue, to turn evil into good. Suffering is not good in itself, it is indifferent. The good or evil in suffering lies, believe it or not, in a person's attitude towards it. It may be either a blessing or a curse. It may strengthen a person's nature or cripple it. Take, for example, the two criminals who were crucified with our Lord. Both suffered the same torments. While one accepted his state as just punishment and obtained a promise of future happiness, the other made his state worse than before by railing and cursing. So the important question is, how do we embrace our own suffering? Our human nature can be purified and refined by sorrow borne in patience for the love of God. If we go to Mary, our mother, in our hour of suffering, not only shall we receive from her consolation in our affliction, but most importantly, we shall also learn by her example. There's something particularly personal about the cross for each one of us. For some, it is mental anguish, dread of death, unreasonable fear of sins long since forgiven. For some, it might be a persistent and harassing temptation, hidden perhaps from every eye, never spoken of except in the confessional. Or it may be physical pain, something incessant like a headache or sleepless nights. Despite the differences our personal cross may have, each one of us has the potential of having that suffering produce for us or give to us a sacramental effect. In other words, bring grace. It can become a fountain of much grace to the soul if we bear it in patience and for the love of God. It can actually make us more gentle, tolerant, sympathetic, resigned, and charitable. We are reminded constantly when we see the crucifix that the royal road of the cross, the road of daily suffering, is the only road to the crown of eternal glory that God has prepared for all of us.